mind, feel free to continue meeting and we'll just kind of get started here a little bit. We had that birthday cake this morning, and before church this morning we were asking Padre. He had a birthday this week, and a great-grandchild is retiring, and I don't know whether that's cause for celebration or a case of depression. Maybe he'll tell us later on. As we start here, I would like to introduce some special people at the head table, and then we have two tables of kind of special guests here. And we're going to do this very quickly. Most people know each other. What I'd like to do is I introduce you. Please stand and remain standing, and I will ask all the people to hold your applause until we get through. There's too many guests. We'll be here all night. Pastor Johnson and his wife Jill, and of course Pastor V, and my wife Cheryl, and the chairman of our congregation, Wilbur Ray, and his wife Patsy. And this is the pastor's table down here. Well, you got to stand up. There's Pastor Mike Winkleman and his wife Margie, and Pastor Al Smith, ducked out someplace, and his wife Carol, and Pastor O.J. Klinkerman and his wife Kathy, and of course Pastor Roger Clems and his wife Ellen. This table over here is the Woodworth children. Here he is. And let's start with the oldest here, Mark and Teresa. Mark is otherwise known as the other Dr. Woodworth. And David and his wife Angie and their son Alex. And Karen and Bill Reed. She is the one responsible for the odd number of people at that table. And Kathy and Jim Williams. I would also like, before we start here, to acknowledge the work of the planning committee. As all of you can imagine, there were a lot of little details in putting all these activities together. Lois and Deb in the office did a lot of work, mailing, phone calls, everything. Special thanks to Bernal Hackman. He made our committee meetings very easy because when we got there, he had most everything all laid out. And of course, Chuck and Rita Farrell were responsible for the printing of this wonderful program. I believe now we're going to have some group singing, led by Bernal. As printed in your program. Thank you, Renell. After I was asked to be the MC for tonight's festivities, I had a friend ask me if I knew a lot of jokes. And I said I really didn't know a lot of jokes, but I did know a few that I heard on the fishing trip. He suggested perhaps I save those for another time. This friend had had some experience being an MC, and he told me whatever you do, don't let the evening deteriorate into the telling of a bunch of lawyer jokes. And that reminds me that this past Friday, when I went to Rotary, I heard a story about two people who were in heaven. And they decided that they wanted to get married. So they went to St. Peter and said, we would like to get married. And he said, no, we can't do it right now. You have to come back later. So they came back in about a year and he said the same thing. And pretty soon this got to be an annual event. Every year they came back and he said, no, we can't do it right now. But finally one year he said, hey, you come back here Thursday, we'll marry you. So they came back Thursday and did the deed. And a few months later, they came back to St. Peter and they said, this was a big mistake. They said, you got to get us out of this. We want a divorce. And St. Peter said, we waited 10 years to get a pastor up here, and now you want an attorney too? Sorry, Bill. We're going to start the main part of the evening now. If you look at your program, it's entitled Sharing. This is where we get the singers. The first one on the program is Pastor Mike Winkleman. Pastor has a parish in Morrison, Illinois, and she and Padre, as you well know, go back a long way, so give the floor to Mike.
Good evening. Margie and I have thoroughly enjoyed this day. We love it in Morrison. We have a congregation very much like our Redeemer, but I would love to ship about 500 of you back with us. Miss you all very much. I want to start by asking Padre to stand up if you would. Now, look at this. Just now look at him. That's all I'm asking. But not. Let me just tell you a story. Two little boys, farm boys, Tommy and Jimmy, they stayed at the farm one day while Mom and Dad went off to town, and Dad knew he could leave Tommy in charge of the place because Tommy had done that before. There was a cow out in the barn that was expecting a calf any time, but he said, Tommy, you can take care of that. You'll be fine. You've done that before. The calf starts to come into the world today, and sure enough, not more than an hour after Mom and Dad had gone to town, Tommy walked into the barn, and there was the cow trying very hard to have a calf. The calf's hind legs were sticking out, and Tommy reached over, as he'd seen his father do many times, and grabbed the hind legs and started to pull. And little Jimmy, who was only 5, came into the barn, and Jimmy was just staring at it, and Tommy said, get over here, pull the right leg, help me a little bit. So little Jimmy went over, he grabbed the other hind leg, and they pulled, and the calf, of course, was born just fine. And as they were walking back to the straw to wash their hands, Jimmy looked up at Tommy and said, how fast was that calf going when I ran into that cow? It's a long way to make a simple point, and I'm not making any comparison to Padre. But you cannot look at this man. You've seen, you know how he walks. You wouldn't think he could lead an Eskimo to an igloo. Tremendous influence in my life, as I'm going to tell you later, but you do not get that impression by looking at him. Okay? All right, it's a long way from the point I'm actually. What I do. Now, a lot of compliments on that song that we sang in church this afternoon. And you do notice that there was only one pastor that wasn't out there singing. and saying, I don't think it's nothing to see, I wouldn't want to do it every day. I was going to ask Lois and Bev, does he still take care of Herman? Does he? Herman is his pride and joy. I use Herman as an illustration for a lot, because when you can dispatch this part of your body and call it another name, you can take care of it all day long, and he had a lot of time put into Herman. He always did Herman, didn't he? Hardy. Herman Hardy, yeah. Hardy. I want to tell you what the man meant to me. He taught me so much in the, I don't know, 2 or 3 years I was here. I was always amazed that he had sermons done, 3 months ahead? It amazed me. If he had them, he would pull it out on Monday and kind of look through it during the week. I need an extra long opening hymn, or I don't have time to finish. He always had him heading way ahead. I'm going to tell you a story that I've told 100 times to anybody who asks me about my ministry. I was in ministry for 3 years. Margie and I went back home to farm for a while, and it didn't take me long to realize I wanted to get back in ministry. And in order to do so, you have to go through everything to get back in. Red tape is unbelievable because they consider you to be some kind of a kook because you left ministry. Has it been cool to do that? I have spent so many weeks looking for a job in Jacksonville, just driving all over, and I pulled on the way home to Arnsville one evening, 5 o'clock or so, sitting at the stoplight at Massey and Morton, and the light just stayed red and stayed red and stayed red. I wanted to get home, and I had a bad day, and I still couldn't find a job, and I couldn't get the district to get moving on my papers to get back in ministry. And I finally looked up at our Redeemer and saw Padre's car sitting up there, and that's when the light turned green, and God said, thank heaven, that man finally saw him up there. I rolled up there, and I walked into Padre's office, and just told him, you've been around here a long time. We knew, as he said very earlier, we knew each other a long time. We had a lot of coffee together over the years. And I said, you've been in town long enough. Do you know where I can get a job someplace? I'm just looking for a job till I get back into the ministry. And the man stood up from his desk and just put his arm around me and said, we'll get you back in to the ministry. I'll take care of the papers. Sure, we'll find you a job. Maybe we can get you on here as an assistant for a while. And my life seriously just turned around. That day, the man did so much for me. The biggest thing he did for me was to change my attitude about ministry, because I had early in my ministry gotten the idea that I'm out there to straighten them out and to be the leader and to be the one who shows them just what to do right. And it was only making me frustrated. And Padre's philosophy of ministry is to love the hell out of people. And I did model that for 2 or 3 years, and it's going to change my ministry around. I'm thrilled where I'm at. The people are tremendous, just as you are, and I know that God kept that stoplight red that day, and for that I thank you, Father.
Thank you, Mike. I would also like to call on Bill Meyer. I have to have a little disclaimer here before he gets up here because I have no idea what he's going to do. I told him they were a mixed company, so. Padre, I want you to know I practice what I preach. Help roast Padre. And of course, I went right back to the funeral and said, Dick, I've got a job for you. And then I looked at the calendar. Dick's fishing in Arkansas. He said, guess what? I got a job for you. I'm here. Dick called a little while ago, said the fishing is good. He's sorry he couldn't be here today. So, I started my research. It was a long and tiring task. First, I went to several Kiwanians I know. And I said, tell me something about Padre and Kiwanis. Well, I found out a couple of things, and they all gave you the same stories.
There were 4 rules in Kiwanis. Padre never gives the invocation. Padre never leads the singing. Padre never gives the program. They only have an hour. I'm letting that one ride. So then I decided that after I talked to some Kiwanians, I found out where his previous parishes were. And I thought, well, I'll get my trusty red book of funeral directors out and I'll make a few phone calls. Believe it or not, there's one funeral director in New Orleans that still remembers him, one in Birmingham, one in Colby, and a couple here in Jacksonville. They all said the same thing. He's strong in faith, but he talks too long. The Padre knows that because every Wednesday we have our morning breakfast, and one of the things that Bill Douglas and I are known to do is we like to let the pastors know how they did the previous Sunday. And the same thing usually comes after every week when Padre's up there, and Pastor Johnson's starting to get the same way. But we usually criteria the sermon and things go along. Another thing that Padre is known for is funeral sermons. I want you to know, after he had his knee surgery, I felt he wasn't feeling well, because he asked me to carry the book up to the altar that day at the funeral home. And I told Padre I'd be more than happy to. Padre, I have some bad news for you. I know it was only 20 minutes that day. It shocked everybody. Here's the 2 pages that are missing out of your... Several of you know the last couple of weeks during the sermon there have been some references to watches, pillows. I'm going to have to confess, and that's something I was brought up as a child to do. After Pastor Johnson's long service on Sunday, almost 2 hours, broke the record for the longest sermon in our Redeemer's history. Which, by the way, Pastor Woodworth, by 1.5 minutes broke it there. On Monday, Thursday, I snuck up to the pulpit while no one was looking, and I take the watch there. A little note that said, if the sermon is too long, the alarm will go off. When Pastor Johnson got up to the lecture that day, he set the little note to the side, he set the watch to the side. The next thing he did is he looked right over at Padre. So I thought, wow, I'm in the clear. But during the service that night, just love my luck, just wasn't running good. We got to the liturgy, got to one page, and for some reason, there was a hymn at the end of the page, and Padre missed the next page. Well, after the next hymn, he realized that, and he came up and he said he dedicated this service to me because I've been trying to keep it short. So that day, as they were coming down the aisle, they stopped right where I was sitting on the aisle. They said, "Can we see your watch?" And I showed them my watch. Well, I'm in the clear still. So Padre, as I talked to some of the funeral directors around town, we had decided we want to get you a little gift. And I know Dick and Fred and I and John thought we had to get something appropriate for you. So we want to present you this as a token of the folks' gratitude. The crowd stands up and gives him a standing ovation because he announces that Pastor Johnson is his replacement. So I don't know what the meaning about that. speaker we're going to hear from again is Pastor Roger Flynn from Buffalo, Minnesota. As Pastor told us earlier, they also go back a long way to seminary and New Orleans. We sure that he's got a lot of stories. Pastor Dave told me the only problem that we would have is getting him to quit.
They say they have a timer. Hasn't made any difference before. I don't know why it should now. Is this man busy? Does he do a lot of things? Yeah, he's always busy, right? Okay. Now that's the reason for long sermons. He doesn't have time to write short ones. Think about that. And as far as if he would stand up, I think he's in great shape. Round is a shape, isn't it? I also know why his voice is the way it is. And that is because in New Orleans he smoked habitant of jewels. There were little cigars that came in their own coffin. So we were driving down the street in his green Opal. Who would buy an Opal? And he asked me if I had a match so that he could light his habitant jewel. And I reached into my pocket and I couldn't find one. He said, "Did you bring a cigarette?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Throw one out of the car." So I did, and he said, "There, now the car's a cigarette lighter." There are a whole lot of things that I can tell you. Helen remembers that Pastor Woodworth was up so early in the morning that he would come and get us out of bed. We were, we didn't work that hard. I was only an assistant pastor, But just tremendous memories, like the first church service in a garage for Prince of Peace on Jacksonville Tour Highway. The one day that I guess I will remember as much as anything, that we needed to stop for lunch along the Jacksonville Tour Highway, and we didn't see anything that was worth stopping at. We stopped at one restaurant, and we got in there, and the cheapest thing on the menu was whole lobster. So we ate. I don't know if we ever did that to come on the beach. Lobster's pretty good. One of the things that I remember about New Orleans is the fact that New Orleans is a very strong Roman Catholic city. And it is also a strong Lutheran city. There are 14 Lutheran churches in the city of New Orleans. Pastor Woodworth remembered Dr. John Now from Hattiesburg. We had more than a few things to do with Dr. Now. And Dr. Now told us that when the German people came to New Orleans, they stopped in New Orleans, they took a drink of the water, and they said, "Ah, du Lieber," and they built a brewery. Because it was a Roman Catholic town, a lot of those Lutheran pastors didn't wear clerical collars except on Sundays or to make hospital calls, because that opened a lot of doors. And I remember this. This was the Sunday morning after David was born. And B was in the hospital on a Sunday, and Pastor Woodworth came to the hospital to call on B, his wife, with his clerical collar on. And B's roommate was a little girl from the bayous who didn't know anything but Roman Catholic. And so when he walked into the hospital room with his collar on, she assumed it was the priest. This priest walked over to the next bed and said to the woman in bed, "Hi, honey," and kissed her. have a lot of growing and a lot of fun in the years that we were in New Orleans. Helen and I weren't there as long as Bee and Harold were, but we did stay in touch, and we really appreciated the opportunities that we had. And I appreciate the opportunity to have come here. I thank you, Harold, for the risk that you've taken for us. And very, very seriously want to say we love you, and we know that God will continue to bless you and the church through the gifts that you are able to share with people. I'm proud to say Dr. Woodworth is my friend.
The next person that wants to talk for a minute is not printed in your bulletin. Pastor Quakerman said that he had a zinger he wanted to share. Mr. Woodworth, it doesn't happen. Asking me from time to time, what did you and Abraham Lincoln talk about? Then he takes a look at my decrepit condition, and he says, tell me about that time when you and Washington crossed the Delaware. There is, however, a story about him, which I have here, which I would like to share with you. When Noah was about 600 years old, he invited Padre to visit him one afternoon. They had a good conversation. They talked about some of the recent things that had happened, like the creation of the world, the crime wave of Cain and Abel, and then it was time for him to go home. But it was raining so terribly hard he couldn't make it. So Noah said, well, why don't you stay here overnight? And he did. Well, the ark was not furnished with a guest room, so Pastor Woodworth had to sleep close to the animals. And he heard the roar of the lions and the growling of the tigers and the chattering of the monkeys, and he just couldn't sleep. So he went to Noah and said, have you got a sleeping pill? Oh, of course, the sleeping pill, what's that? So he didn't get any. Now the next morning, the water was higher and higher, and it was still raining, and all of a sudden, Noah jumped up and he said, oh, I don't know whether I finished that last board in the ark, and if that comes loose, the ark is going to sink. What would we do then? Well, Padre very quietly said, if that happens, we'll just call 9/11. He wanted desperately to go to Hardee's. But for 5 months, he had to eat the cooking of Noah's wife. And I have never heard that she was any kind of an expert cook. So when the flood was over and the water had receded, they opened the door and walked out into the mud and the slush and the debris that was lying around. Then Noah looked at the ark and he said, what in the world am I going to do with this huge boat sitting up here at the very top of the mountain? Oh, Padre said, if you wait about 4,000 or 5,000 years, there'll be people who will want to see the relics of it. Oh, he said, well, then I'll stay and set up a little souvenir shop. But Padre said, well, there's something else we can do here. In fact, it will even be profitable. Well, what's that? Noah wanted to know. So Padre said, well, we're up here on the mountain, and we'll get up real early in the morning, and we'll gather all the drops of water that are on the grass and are on the plants and the shrubbery and so forth. Then we'll put them in a bottle, and then we'll market it, and we will call it Mountain Dew. Woodworth is very gregarious. He likes to be around people. And here for 5 months he had just these 8 people that he could talk to. So he was very anxious to get out, especially also the fact that he could not babysit with his grandchildren or with his great friends. That was a handicap. Now, what should he do up there? There were only 8 people in the world. Could he have a congregation? Or how could he make mission calls? How could he have his Saturday night weddings? So, but the only thing that he could do was to serve as a pastor emeritus. Of course, means that you do nothing. I know that's the way it is. So, Noah wanted to thank God for the protection, and he asked Pastor Woodworth to conduct a service. Well, he said, there is no Missouri Synod Lutheran Church anywhere here. I don't know how he can do that. And on top of that, there's no place here that has the traditional 3 steps, leading up to the altar. That won't work either. And he said, supposing I do have a church service, I'll need 2 acolytes, 2 greeters, 2 collectors, 2 ushers, and 2 communion assistants. Well, who in the world is there as an audience? So he didn't know. Oh, yes, he had an idea. He said there are 8 people, and we can form 2 committees. And we can have endless meetings and do absolutely nothing. Well, Noah's patience finally grew rather thin, and he put some stones together and made an altar, and there made a sacrifice of thanksgiving. And Dr. Hanson's choir was not there to sing the Hallelujah chorus, but those 2 birds that Noah had released from the ark were sitting there in a tree nearby, and they chirped and used their voices, and God was smiling. So Padre finally got a kind of an idea. He seemed to be seeing something. He saw a building, and the building had a great big roof on it, and it had a lot of shingles on it, and you could see that some of those shingles hadn't been paid for yet. So he noticed that the people who greeted him were very friendly, and they shook hands with him, and he got any number of hugs. So gradually he noticed that, he wasn't on Noah's Ark anymore, but he was in the Holiday Inn.
These 2 pastor emeritus are going to sit in the same pew.
But I'll call on the chairman of our congregation, Woodworth, as a special presentation for the Padre.
Good evening. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to extend my thanks to Jerry Raymond for being our MC this evening. I know how he volunteered. Padre who? It's amazing how fast things get away from us. And Pastor Woodworth is a man that has many names. And this Pastor Emeritus, I was having difficulty with, and I'm glad that Pastor Klinkerman helped straighten part of that out. I was just wondering what a Pastor Emeritus was supposed to be and what he was supposed to do. I do have some concerns for Pastor Woodworth to think about. There have been 17 past chairmen of the congregation, including myself. Usually this is in reverse. A few chairmen and many pastors. Many of these past chairmen are with us this evening, and I know they would also like the opportunity to tell us a good story or two. And the count I had, I believe out of those 17, there's probably 12 or 13 of those past chairmen here with us. Another concern I have for Pastor Woodworth is, why did you decide to retire and bail out during my term in office? Speaking of bailing out, should you decide to follow George Bush's stunt and make one more jump out of a plane, I ask three things of you. Let us know when, make it close to Jacksonville, and take me along. On a little more serious note, we at our Redeemer are truly blessed to have you as our pastor for the past 21 years. And my first presentation is a booklet of letters from your many members and friends that we have put together. And I believe it'll take you an evening or two to read all of these letters. And I won't attempt to read any of them. Some of them might get a little personal. If any of you still haven't wrote Padre a letter and still like to, feel free to do so and turn it into the church office, and they will add it to this booklet. Pastor Woodworth. I would also like to present you with a love gift from your members and friends. It's a check for over $2,000, $2,037 to be exact. I'll turn the mic over to him. He's
I'll get you. Not quite yet. As you notice in the program, the last part of the program, before the benediction, which by the way, you can do benediction, is somewhat optimistically called A Few Words from the Man of the Hour. As we have heard in some detail tonight, Padre is not really very good at a few words. He really doesn't know the words come infused. With all due respect to the other clergymen here, I've noticed that that's an affliction that they all have. I don't really know what it's called, but I think it's got something to do with those funny collars. I think it's Pastor Clem's made just a brief reference to preparing a sermon, and Padre had reminded me about the story about a man who was a well-known public speaker, and he was being interviewed, and someone asked him, how long it would take him to write a 5-minute speech. And he said, that would probably take me 2 hours. And he said, well, how about a 15-minute, or how long would that take? He said, oh, that would take only about an hour. And he said, well, what if you had to talk for a long time, like 45 minutes, or maybe even an hour? And the answer came back, sir, I am ready now. Ready, sir, Padre, you are ready now.
So many people who are here tonight that I'd like to say thank you to, and I hope I made my way around the room and also during the day at the services to say thank you. Some of you have literally shocked me. I think of some of the faces who are out there that have come so far, and really I don't know what to say, so I won't. You will understand, I'm sure, that I really feel at heart the love, the great support that you have given me. And I think of my family, and I'm so proud of everyone that's around this table, especially also my wife. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't be here. We've had an exciting ministry. So hard to put it all together. It's like Dee on a whole lot of things that I haven't forgotten about. And I think of the rope gallery picture that you got of that Brady Bunch in there back in the early 70s. We had that thing framed in color in our living room. You know something? Every once in a while, it's missing. And I find it under the couch, under a chair. I found it under cushions. Nobody wants to claim it. Well, I'm pleased to claim all of you as my very dear friends, and I know that Dee and I cannot thank you enough. Everything that you have done for us and what you mean to us. And to have our dear Helen and Raj here means so much to us. To have all of you gathered at this time is so great. God bless every one of you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. And Padre, have you got one more benediction left in you?
Keep it short, huh? Lord bless you and keep you. Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his peace.